Hello everyone, my name is Grizn0 and welcome to my complete assault rifle guide for Battlefield 4. In this guide I will go over all the assault rifles available in the assault class, providing the usual noteworthy specs as we go along, as well as give you a little bit of personal opinion on the gun's performance and general handling. I know this video looks scary at 25 plus minutes, but I assure you it is only because there are a lot of assault rifles to go over, and I don't really spend any more than 2 minutes on each one. So I've also included a handy table of contents in the description below that will allow you to skip back and forth to weapons you want to hear about. So if you don't want to hear about a certain weapon I'm talking about, you can just skip it without worrying about missing anything. And before we get started, there are a couple things I'd like to mention real quick. One in particular being related to the damage spec I'm going to be rattling off for all of these weapons. For the most part, assault rifles are all capable of doing the same minimum and maximum damage of 18 and 25, with a few exceptions like the Scar H. But the tricky thing about these damage values is the existence of damage multipliers. So before we talk about the weapons, let's go over the damage multiplier values in Battlefield 4 so those of you who don't yet know will get a base understanding of how they work. The damage multipliers for basic bullets are as follows. Basically, headshots are worth a 2 times multiplier, chest and arms are a 1 times multiplier, stomach and legs are a 0.93 times multiplier, and also the chest and arms of an enemy running the defensive specification is also 0.93 times multiplier. So when I say a weapon does a maximum damage of 25, that would be a shot to the chest or arms within 8 meters and no defensive specification, which is a 1 times multiplier, and that essentially means that there is no multiplier. On the contrary, if it is a headshot, that would carry a 2 times multiplier, making the bullet do 50 damage, because 2 times 25 is 50. So essentially, 2 rounds to the face within 8 meters will get you a kill with the majority of the assault rifles. See how that works now? Yes, good. So finally, if the shot is in the legs or the stomach, then the multiplier becomes less than 1, meaning your total damage dealt will be somewhere between the minimum damage of the weapon and most definitely less than the maximum damage. The second thing I want to mention is that when I'm talking about attachments for each weapon, I will mostly be talking about barrel and underbarrel attachments because for the majority of the time, I very rarely, if ever, run a laser sight or any other accessory other than the tactical light if it is available to me. Flashlights and lasers give away your position too often, and I just think that the tactical light is perfect because it only comes on when you're aiming down sights. Therefore, it will only work when I absolutely need to blind someone. So I run the tactical light as much as possible. Also, everyone knows that what the laser sight does and the flashlight, so we don't need to go over the possibility of using them on each weapon because they really don't affect the performance of the rifle other than the laser's hipfire bonus. Third, all the stats in this video were taken from simthic.com. As I was told, Battlelog is really unreliable at the moment as far as weapon statistics go, so all the stats are from simthic.com, and I will leave a link to the site in the description. And finally, I do not have the L85 AVE2 included in this guide as it is a DLC weapon and I haven't had enough time to play with it yet. I will most likely do a follow-up video on all the DLC weapons at a later date. Alright guys, now that you know those little stipulations for this video, let's get on with it. The AK-12 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 650 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic, 3-round burst, and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 3 seconds when empty and 2.05 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills you will unlock Russian attachments, while US and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. So the AK-12 is the default weapon for the assault class, and it's also the only assault rifle that comes with default attachments, and those would be the Cobra Optic, Laser Sight, and Ergo Grip. It's a very balanced weapon and a great choice for the larger game modes like Conquest and Rush, certainly some Rush maps. It's got moderate recoil and a decent rate of fire, which makes it deadly at medium to long range engagements. Although I can't say that it is terrible in close quarters either. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the way it performs in close quarters settings like Operation Locker and domination games. This weapon's fire rate becomes 750 rounds per minute on burst mode. I think that's worth mentioning. On automatic, it feels like the AK from Battlefield 3, but on burst, it sort of feels like a slightly less powerful AN-94. I don't mind the suppressor on this weapon, but it's really up to you. One thing I should probably mention is I do not like the heavy barrel very much for any of these weapons so far, so I won't be making that won't be making very many appearances in these recommendations. I just find it adds too much recoil to most of the assault rifles, and I just plain do not like it in Battlefield 4 so far. So for the grip, I like to go with the stubby grip for added accuracy, as this weapon's base stability is already pretty good. The Scar H has a maximum damage of 34 and a minimum damage of 25, firing at a rate of 620 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 21 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 2.4 seconds when empty and 1.9 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock US attachments, while Russian and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. So the Scar H is a beast at long range, boasting the highest damage output of any of the assault rifles, but it also suffers from a much lower rate of fire than any of the other ARs. But what it lacks in rate of fire, it more than makes up for in sheer power. The extremely high damage output makes it a contender in close quarters, and its medium recoil makes medium to long range engagements little to no contest. The semi-automatic fire mode is so deadly accurate that it can only be outclassed by sniper rifles and DMRs. I recommend running the Scar H with nothing on the barrel, but if you would like a bit more accuracy, you can put a muzzle brake on there. You won't really notice much of a performance change, as the Scar is just so accurate to begin with. And then the grips are subjective, but I like the Ergo for close quarters and the Stubby or Potato for larger game modes. But again, I do not recommend running the heavy barrel on the Scar because it just ruins the accuracy of this already wonderfully accurate weapon. The M416 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 750 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 2.4 seconds when empty and 1.85 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock US attachments, while Russian and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. The M416 is one of the most popular assault rifles, as I see many people using it very frequently, and for good reason. The M416 is undoubtedly one of the best assault rifles available, with its moderate fire rate, great accuracy, and a pretty quick reload as well. This gun is kind of like easy mode. When I run it, I generally have a lot of success, and I truly believe that running this weapon will likely increase your kill to death ratio, and I'm not even lying about that. Even better, this weapon performs so well with the suppressor that I really don't see any reason not to run the suppressor ever. This is definitely one I did not like the heavy barrel on. The best part about this weapon is its accuracy, and putting the heavy barrel on it just destroys it completely in my opinion. So run the suppressor every time. In Battlefield 4, engaging a group of enemies by yourself is really risky business, so being able to stay off the radar with a suppressor can really help you win situations where you may be up against 2 or 3 enemies by yourself. If they don't know where they're being shot from, you can manage to take them all out. So the fact that the suppressor is so good on this weapon is awesome, and I literally run it every time, guys. So once again, run the suppressor every time. Other than that, for the grips, I like the folding grip or the angled grip, which gives bonus to stability, making this weapon even more deadly accurate. The SAR-21 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 600 rounds per minute, with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 3.4 seconds when empty and 2.3 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock Chinese attachments, while Russian and US attachments are available through battle packs. The SAR-21 is another long-range titan. This thing fires laser beams, and with some tuning in the attachments department, you can make this weapon even more deadly and accurate at medium to long range. It has the highest base stability of any assault rifle, but it also has the lowest rate of fire, making it pretty tough to use in close quarter situations. Unlike the SCAR, it just simply does not have enough going for it to be considered of much use in close quarter situations. It is amazing for larger maps and game modes though. Using a muzzle brake or a compensator along with an angled or folding grip will give the SAR-21 unbelievable recoil reduction. But since it has such great stability to begin with, this is one of the assault rifles that I actually would recommend running the heavy barrel on to increase the long range accuracy and make you just a force to be reckoned with at medium to long range. One downside to this weapon is it does have one of the longer reload times as well, and that makes it an even less viable option as a close quarters weapons choice. But other than that, this thing will fire laser beams. The AEK-971 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 900 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic, 3-round bursts, and semi-automatic. Yes, it got that burst though. Its reload times are 2.4 seconds when empty and 1.85 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock Russian attachments, while US and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. So the AEK is my personal favorite assault rifle in Battlefield 4 so far. It is the second fastest firing assault rifle, falling short only of the FAMAS' ridiculous 1,000 rounds per minute. But this weapon is a monster in close quarters. It fires so fast and really is very accurate up to medium range, and it will just melt people, no questions asked. When you get to medium range and longer range engagements, the AEK still performs very well. The trick is in controlling the recoil and watching your trigger finger. Burst firing this weapon at a distance is very effective so long as you allow the weapon to zero itself between bursts. Because of its versatility and amazing fire rate, the AEK, like I said, is my personal favorite assault rifle. Suppressors are definitely a viable option as long as you are aware of the speed drop of your bullets. Leading your target is important when running a suppressor on this weapon, but I definitely do recommend running a suppressor on the AEK. I definitely do not recommend the heavy barrel. The recoil is just ridiculous, and basically I recommend using attachments that will give bonuses to accuracy and just learn how to control the fire rate and the recoil of the AEK, because you can be a deadly force with this weapon at all ranges. The FAMAS has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 1,000 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 26 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic, 3-round burst, and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 3.55 seconds when empty and 2.8 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock US attachments, while Russian and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. The FAMAS is the undisputed close quarters champion of the ARs. This weapon has the highest rate of fire of the assault rifles and just does absolute work in a close quarters setting. The drawback to this is, of course, the recoil. Lowest base stability in the game, making even medium range engagements a challenge, let alone long range. It is one of the most difficult weapons to use in the game, but if you can master it, you will probably enjoy a lot of success and win a lot of gunfights. Along with the terrible recoil is the low magazine capacity at 26 rounds max, meaning this weapon chews through ammo at an ungodly rate. With the shortage of ammo dropping support players around, this is a problem. And if that wasn't enough, there's the awful reload times. I can't count how many times while playing with this weapon I was killed in the middle of a reload. But even with all its drawbacks, the simple fact that you can use attachments like the muzzle brake or compensator, pair it with the angled or foregrip, and you can decrease the recoil a little bit, making this weapon at least more accurate and thus much more deadly. Even with all the complaints I have, I still like this weapon, and I would recommend using it in a close quarters setting for sure. This is another weapon you can run the suppressor on and be very effective with still, but I will probably laugh at you if you tell me that the heavy barrel is good on the FAMAS. So like I said, overall, close quarters monster, definitely would recommend. The AUG-A3 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 700 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 3.1 seconds when empty and 2.5 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills you will unlock US attachments, while Russian and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. The AUG-A3 is nothing if it isn't balanced. It offers a steady fire rate, low recoil, and overall excellent accuracy. Even in close quarters, it's a very viable choice. On paper, it is slightly better than the M416, but I just refuse to accept that personally. Although I think the AUG-A3 is a good choice in any situation, I just found that the M416 was a little bit more reliable and consistent with its time to kill. The AUG-A3 has a slower rate of fire and a slower reload in both long and short cases, and it has a little bit more spread when aiming down sights. The heavy barrel is actually not too bad on this weapon, but like I said, personally I don't like the attachment that much, so I don't tend to run it that much. But if you pair it with an angled grip or a folding grip to get back some of that loss to stability you get with the heavy barrel, it just might be a viable choice. Suppressors work well with this weapon, as it does have one of the higher muzzle velocities with the suppressor, but it really is just an overall very middle of the road and balanced weapon. The M16A4 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 800 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include 3-round burst and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 2.37 seconds when empty and 1.87 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills you will unlock US attachments, while Russian and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. The M16A4 makes it back into Battlefield 4, but does not bring its sister gun, the one everyone loved in Battlefield 3, the M16A3. The A4 is by no means a slouch, however. It does have a good fire rate, provided you can master the timing of the trigger pulls, which I'm not very good at yet. The major downside to this weapon I found was the recoil. It kicks hard to the right, and with a heavy barrel it is even worse. Found this weapon to be best suited for game modes like Conquest and maybe a rush defense round, because it really does have amazing range, especially when you use a 3.4 times optic or a 4 times optic. Again, the recoil is deadly though, so long range engagements are the key to doing well with this weapon. When choosing a grip for this weapon, I would recommend you go with the angled or folding grip, which will reduce that recoil slightly. And if you need a little more recoil control, you can always go with the muzzle brake or compensator on the barrel. I'm going to leave the suppressors up to your discretion on this one, because admittedly I have not played enough with this weapon to unlock one yet, so I can't really give an opinion on them, as that would be pure speculation on my part, and we don't want that. The CZ805 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 700 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic, 3-round burst, and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 2.9 seconds when empty and 2.35 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock Russian attachments, while US and Chinese attachments are available through battle packs. I included that little slip up on purpose because the CZ805 is very similar to the AUG-A3. One major difference though is that the CZ805 does have a 3-round burst mode, which the AUG does not, but they are in fact so similar that when comparing them, the list of equal stats contains basically all the important stats like damage, drop-off distance, fire rate, magazine size, bullet drop. The list goes on. The short list of advantages you will enjoy with this CZ805 are a slightly faster reload and a slightly less spread when ADS and not moving. Other than that, I will just refer you to the section on the AUG because we'll be moving on in the interest of time. I also think it's important to note though that this is the last assault rifle you will unlock for the assault class by way of score. The QBZ951 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 650 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic, 3-round burst, and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 3.1 seconds when empty and 2.5 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock Chinese attachments, while Russian and US attachments are available through battle packs. QBZ951 is unlocked by completing the campaign assignment to Valhalla, of which I have no idea how to complete. All I know is that I unlocked this assault rifle without even knowing I did it, so it must have been pretty easy and straightforward. I think it's just completing the campaign. The QBZ functions pretty much the same as it did in Battlefield 3, which puts it somewhere between the SAR-21 and the AUG-A3. It's a good middle-of-the-road assault rifle with a steady fire rate and good accuracy. The downside is a slightly longer reload than some of the other assault rifles. If I were to describe the QBZ95, I would probably say mashed with no gravy. And if anyone gets that reference, please leave a comment down below. Basically what it is though, mashed with no gravy, it's like very underwhelming. So it's a very underwhelming gun. You really don't use this and go, this is my new favorite assault rifle. Or maybe you do, I don't know, but not really that type of weapon in my opinion. It is important to note that you cannot equip the M26 mass on this weapon. A suppressor works for this weapon, but to my astonishment, I found that the heavy barrel was actually what made this weapon really usable. So on this one, I definitely recommend running the heavy barrel. The grip is up to you as the weapon already has a good base stability and accuracy, so just decide which one you'd rather have a boost to and play around with it. The ACE-23 has a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 18, firing at a rate of 770 rounds per minute with a magazine capacity of 31 rounds. Its firing modes include fully automatic and semi-automatic, and its reload times are 3.1 seconds when empty and 2.1 seconds while still containing rounds in the magazine. Through kills, you will unlock Chinese attachments, while Russian and US attachments are available through battle packs. I kind of lied earlier when I said the M16A3 didn't really make it into Battlefield 4 because it kind of did. It made it in the form of the ACE-23, or the ACE, I like to call it, which is an Israeli Galil assault rifle. Difference is a slightly slower rate of fire than the M16A3 of Battlefield 3 at 770 rounds per minute instead of 800. It is one of the better assault rifles to use in close quarters combat because of that though. I don't really like the iron sights, so switching to an optic ASAP is highly recommended. Suppressors are a very viable option, but I do not recommend the heavy barrel. Once again, the recoil becomes a little bit too much. This weapon already requires controlled bursts to be effective at medium to long range, but it is possible with the help of the stubby or potato grip to give it some bonuses to accuracy and really increase the range of this weapon. The ACE-23 did recently receive a nerf in a recent patch, so I can't say for sure that it is as good as it was on launch, but it is still a very effective weapon at most ranges and is actually one of the better choices for close quarters combat of all the assault rifles. Strangely enough though, the ACE-23 cannot equip any underbarrel weapons, even if there are no grips in use. So there you have it, folks. Grizn0's Battlefield 4 Assault Rifle Guide. Please feel free to leave me a comment down below, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from everyone. I apologize if I pronounced any of the weapon names wrong or anything. I'm not a gun nut or anything, I'm just really just a guy who likes to play Battlefield. So yeah, please give me a break on that if I had any of the names wrong. Also, if you're new around here, please consider subscribing, as I have more guides for the other classes planned as well, and maybe some more in-depth looks at some of the weapons of Battlefield 4. So if you enjoyed this video or found any of the information useful, please remember to hit that like button down below, as it really helps me out. Sharing this video with your friends also helps me out tremendously. Once again, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. My name is Grizn0, and I will see you later.